Welcome to part three, where we go in on the tribe of Naphtali, the Argentinians, to Chile, to Peru, the so called Incas. Let's find out who the people of Peru, Argentina, and Chile are. All right, the Incans. Genesis 49 and 21. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. Okay, so a hind is a female deer. And I mean, we all know any type of female gets let loose without any type of authority or head over. It's wild. It's symbolic of wildness, sporadicness, jumping around. And when it's a female deer, it's when a female deer is let loose, it goes to the mountains. You understand? And the so-called Incans, the people of Peru, Chile, Argentina, the whole Argentina mountain range, or excuse me, the Andes mountain range, those people dwell in the highest mountain range on earth, right? Are they are the people that dwell. They're the only people that dwell in a high mountain range. I should say it like that. That's that high, and they've been dwelling as a civilization that long there. The Incas, right? The people in Peru, Chile, Bolivia, they live in those places, right? So when a female deer is let loose, she runs as far as she can go, and she goes to the mountains. You understand? And the speaking of goodly words is well known throughout history, and is well known, documented in manuscripts that the Incan kings would teach their people and instruct them in literacy and how to speak articulate and elegant. All right. So this is out the World Digital Library, and it says art and vocabulary in the common language of Peru called the Quechua, and in the Spanish language, the most extensive and elegant as of the present. All right, so it was published in 1614, and it would say that they have the most extensive and elegant language and speech of the present, right? So we're starting to see the people of Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru are the tribe of Naphtali. Now let's go into the etymology segment. They believed and said that the world, heaven and earth, sun and moon had been created by one greater than they. They called him Ilatike, which means eternal light. The moderns added another name that is Viracocha, which means great god of Perua, meaning whom Perua, the first settler of the lands, worshiped, and from whom the entire country and empire took the name Perua, which the Spaniards corrupted to Peru or Pirua. So the natives of Peru believe that the first settler, the first person there to walk the land, his name was Pirua, right? So now let's go and find who Pirua is. Secondly, they said that this great Pirua Pacaric Manco Inca, the first settler of these lands, when he died, was raised up to heaven to the house and station of this god called Pirua, and that there he was lodged and entertained by his god. All right, so this first settler, this first person to come to Peru, his name was Pirua Pacaric Manco. All right, so the word Pirua, let's find out if it has any Hebrew correlation. The book of First Kings, chapter 4, verse 17. Jehoshaphat, the son of Peruah in Issachar. All right, so Peruah is in the Bible. Peruah is a Hebrew word. It means sprout, right? And Peruah, when you go to the Peruah, the Piruah or the Peru, it's just another Aramaic. How could you say mistranslation or substituting of e's for a's? You know how the Hebrew works. When it comes to that word, right? So Parua in the scriptures was the son of Iskar, and in Piru or Parua was a king of the Incans. He named himself after a known Israelite in the scriptures, right? I mean, he didn't name himself, obviously, his parents, but you see what I'm saying, Israel? All right, this is from a website called Weapons and Warfare, and an article was written about the Incan military. It says, in order to prepare future soldiers, military training took place on a bi-monthly basis and began with boys as young as 10 years old who took part in physical activities such as wrestling, weightlifting, and sling shooting. So it's well known in the Incan civilization to wrestle, right? And you can also find that throughout the history that some of the kings would wrestle for power, right? So the Incan Empire wrestled. Now let's see what Naphtali means. Naphtali from Naphthalia, all right? And Naphtali, it means my wrestling. Okay, it's Strong's H6617 6617. It means my wrestling. Genesis 30 and 8. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. All right, so Rachel wrestled with Leah, and she named the child born unto her servant Naphtali because she wrestled. All right, so that's further proof that the so-called Incans, so-called Peruvians, Chileans, Argentina, and Bolivia are the tribe of Naphtali, because it's shown throughout their history that they were a wrestling civilization, and it's documented. Deuteronomy 33 and 23. And Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with blessing of the Lord, possess the west and the south. All right. So it's talking about the seas, the West and the South Sea. So what's the furthest west and western South Sea? It's the South Pacific. All right. The tribe of Naphtali possessed the furthest West Sea and the furthest South Sea. Right there, Argentina, Peru, they all have that sea by them. All right. So the Incas had that ocean by them. All right. So it said amongst the tribes, when we got our land allocated to us over here, that the tribe of Naphtali will possess the west and the south. All right. It's speaking of the oceans that they would possess, the South Pacific and the furthest west ocean, which is the Pacific, and the South Pacific, which is the furthest southwestern ocean. All right. Aquí donde me ves. Next up is the tribe of Simeon, so-called Dominicans. Simeon, Dominican, the brother of Levi, the so-called Haitian. Genesis 49 and 5. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. What are one of those instruments of cruelty in their habitations? The noose, hanging when the Dominicans hang the Haitian brothers from a tree, right? The instruments of cruelty also goes into the witchcraft, the las divisiones, which is the Haitian, or excuse me, which is the Dominican form of voodoo, and their brother Levi practices the Haitian voodoo, the Haitian form of voodoo. Instruments of cruelty are within their lands, the noose and the voodoo, the witchcraft. Genesis 49 and 6. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly, mine honor. Be not thou united. All right, so they wasn't supposed to be united. That's why there's a division on the island of Hispaniola between the Haitians and the Dominicans. Of all the tribes of Israel, they're the only ones that war against each other to that degree. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and I will scatter them in Israel. That's why they're divided down the land, and that's why they're divided as a people. They can't. They have a beef amongst each other, and they're on the same island, and they're brothers. Now let's go to etymology to prove that the tribe of Simeon was here in the Western Hemisphere in the North Americas, and let's prove that they were in the area of the Dominican Republic. Because the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, all these islands were traveled by the Arawaks and Tainos, right? So let's check something out when it comes to etymology. The word Jamaica. All right, take it from a so-called Jamaican. The word Jamaica does not mean no land of wood and water. It's Jamaica. All right. Remember the sh and the x in the Spanish codices in the Arawakan dialect is sh. All right. It's Jamaica or Shamaikua, right? Because remember, Kua or Koa means in the Assyrian dialect means dwelling or land. And from the Strong's 6960, Hebrew kawa, which means dwelling also. All right, so it's properly translated correctly as land of Simeon. Shammai Kua. Remember, Simeon is Shammai Awan, means to hear. All right, or the Most High is heard. Right, so the land of Jamaica is properly pronounced Shammai Ka. Shammai Ka. All right, the Ka in the Strong's 6960 coming from Kawa, meaning dwelling. Or habitation. In the Assyrian, it's Koa. Shammai Koa, Shammai Ka. It's not Jamaica. All right, so the tribe of Simeon named Jamaica. So that's proof that they was over here. All right, and the Arawaks, they traveled all of those islands. So they said, we're going to name this island Shammai Koa or Shammai Ka, as in the land of Simeon. You understand?
The child who witnessed the murder of his father and the other Taino leaders in Sharawa was taken away from the killing field by a Spanish priest. He was placed in the care of missionaries and baptized Enrique. Although raised by Spaniards, he never forgot his own identity, heir to the chiefdom of the Bahoruco region of the island.
Enrique was a tall and graceful man with a well-proportioned body. His face was neither handsome nor ugly, but that of a serious and stern man. He married a native, a woman of excellent and noble lineage, named Doña Lucia. Bartolomé de las Casas.
The Spanish government created a labor grant system under which individual Spanish landholders were given village populations to use as forced labor. Enrique, his wife, and his people were turned over to a debauched young Spaniard named Valenzuela. They were at his mercy. The priest, Las Casas, protested.
In a more just world, Enrique would have been the master. Valenzuela viewed Enriquillo as a slave and valued him less than manure in the street.
Enrique complied with Valenzuela's tyrannical demands, for which he was rewarded with regular beatings and robbed of his last remaining possessions. His many appeals to Spanish authorities fell on deaf ears. When Valenzuela raped his wife, Enrique reached his breaking point. He and his followers escaped to their homelands in the lofty Bahoruco Mountains.
The Spanish came to call him the rebel Enrique, and those who followed him were termed rebels and insurgents. Although in truth they were not rebelling, but only fleeing from their cruel enemies who were misusing and destroying them, just as a cow or an ox tries to escape from the slaughterhouse. Bartolomé de las Casas.
Enrique organized his people. Women, children, and elderly were sent into caves high in the mountains, where they raised chickens and cultivated gardens to feed the resistance army. Scouts were posted on every crag and pass. Heavy boulders rolled into place above the footpaths. Enrique instructed his men to fight only in self-defense, to kill Spaniards only in the course of battle, and otherwise to simply deprive them of their arms. At first, the Spanish army was confident they would quickly crush the Taino resistance. But Enrique's people, armed only with spears, iron spikes, fish bones, and bows and arrows, fought with fierce determination against the Spanish and their sophisticated arms. Time after time, they forced the enemy to retreat. During one fierce battle, Valenzuela himself was captured. But even this mortal enemy's life would be spared. Enrique ordered him released. As word of Enrique's victories spread across the island, many Taino fled to his refuge and joined the fight for freedom. His legend grew. It was said that Enrique never slept at night, that he himself patrolled the village until dawn. For over a decade, he fought Spain to a standstill. Finally, unable to defeat the guerrillas on their own territory, an exhausted and humiliated Spanish government made overtures of peace.
I know the Spanish very well, because they killed my father and grandfather and all the people of the kingdom of Sharawa, and reduced the population of the entire island of Hispaniola. I have fled to my own land, where neither I nor any of my followers are harming anyone, but are simply defending ourselves against those who came to capture and kill us. I need not talk to another Spaniard. Enrique, Taino.
But there was one Spaniard to whom Enrique would still talk, the priest, Las Casas. After many years spent demanding the king act to stop Spanish atrocities in the New World, Las Casas had been officially designated Protector of the Indians. He now sought out Enrique in his mountain stronghold. 2 months later, Las Casas and Enrique appeared before Spanish authorities and negotiated a truce. 14 years after it began, the rebellion came to an end, but only after the Spanish agreed to guarantee freedom for Enrique's people.
So this powerful brother sees his mother get murdered by the Spaniard, his father get murdered by the Spaniard, his grandfather get murdered by the Spaniard, and his wife raped by the Spaniard, right? And then he gets, when he was a child, he was taken by them and raised up by them, and then he eventually rebels against them. The spirit gets on him, and he rebels against them and fights his people out of slavery to the point of where the Spanish rulers had to hear him. His affliction was heard. The Most High heard his affliction, and the Spanish rulers had to basically bow out and sign a peace deal to leave the Tainos and the Arawak people alone. All right, the people of Hispaniola, right? And he fought against them, and the Most High heard his affliction. And the Spaniard heard, he literally went before the rulers of Spain, and they had to hear his word, and they bowed out. All right, so the tribe of Simeon is the so-called Dominicans. So Simeon comes from Shemaiah 1 in Hebrew, which means affliction heard, and the Most High heard Enrique's affliction. And so did the Spaniard, to the point where he had to let Enrique's people go, like back in the days of Moses, another Moses, Egypt type situation, you know? last but in no regard the least, the most excellent tribe of Reuben, the so-called Seminole. Genesis 49:3. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. All right, so Reuben is the firstborn son of Jacob. He is the excellency of dignity and the excellency of strength and excellency of power, right? The so-called Seminoles, they were a real noble, dignified people. Even when it comes to the way they dress, it's very noble and dignified and royal. All right. It says he is the excellency of power. Now let's go into the power that Reuben had, the firstborn son of Jacob, the beginning of Jacob's strength. This is from the Seminole tribe of Florida uh, page, the history section, and it reads, by May 10th, 1842, when a frustrated President John Tyler ordered the end of military actions against the Seminoles, over 20 million had been spent, 15,000 American soldiers had died, and still no formal peace treaty had been signed. At that time, it marked the most costly military campaign, all right, in the young country's history. And it wasn't over yet. 13 years later, a U.S. Army survey party seeking the whereabouts of Abika and other Seminole groups was attacked by Seminole warriors under the command of the colorful Billy Bowlegs. The nation invested its entire reserve into the apprehension of the ambushers. Now let's speak about the power and the excellency of Reuben. Reuben frustrated the U.S. president to the point of ordering the end of the war against him, right? Over 20 million had been spent. 15,000 American soldiers had died, right? Since when Esau let you get away with killing 15,000 and don't mess with you? Are just signs of end of the war against you. No peace treaty was signed, all right? No formal peace treaty. And it was the most costly military campaign at its time, more than the Revolutionary War, more than the French and Indian War, more than the Spanish and American War, more than the Alamo War. So they spent and then it says they went into their reserve when they were attacked 13 years later after they had put an end to fighting against the tribe of Reuben. They were attacked 13 years later, and then they had to go into their reserve after they had spent $20 million trying to fight Reuben, and it just didn't work. Now let's see what $20 million would have been today if they were going to war. What's $20 million today? So 20 million in 1842 was worth 635,092,682. So the white man spent all that money and went into his reserves trying to defeat the tribe of the tribe of Reuben, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen because Reuben is the excellency of Jacob and the beginning of his excellency and the power of excellency. Genesis 49:4. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch. All right, so it says the tribe of Reuben, which are the so-called Seminoles, it says they shall be unstable as water. Now let's see, and it also says they shall not excel, but we're going to address that point. But let's see how they're unstable as water, or how that could possibly relate to them being unstable. All right, so this is from the Online Etymology Dictionary, Seminole, 1763, from Creek Muskogee, Somalili, earlier Somaloni, which means wild, untamed, or runaway. All right, so Seminole means wild, untamed, or runaway. That goes back to him being unstable. That's why the white man couldn't get his hands on him. It wasn't about him being able to actually kill the tribe of Reuben or kill the Seminoles. He couldn't get his hands on them. They knew the land, they knew the swamps. They were people of that area. He couldn't even get into their area to get at them. And when he got in there, if the little times that he could, uh, the tribe of Reuben will be lying in wait because they already knew their lands. He was wild and untamed and runaway. That's what Seminole means, right? And that goes back to him being unstable. So let's read it again since we have the understanding on unstable now. Genesis 49 and 4. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch. All right, so it said he's unstable, but he wouldn't excel. Now let's look at the excelling aspect of the tribe of Reuben, because they fought against the white man. They was the only tribe amongst all the 12 tribes that didn't somehow come to some type of treaty or agreement with the white man. They just fought him until the white man just got tired of it, you know. And now let's see how the tribe of Reuben didn't excel, though they fought with excellency in the power. All right, like the scripture says, the excellency of dignity and excellency of power. Though they did that, let's see how they didn't excel. So everybody's familiar with the Trail of Tears, right? When the white man made four Gadite tribes, and the tribe of Reuben, the Seminoles, march across America off their lands to put them on, believe it's Oklahoma, right? And in certain other parts of Indian territory. So that's the part of Reuben not excelling. He fought, he fought, he fought. He escaped. He made the white man exacerbate all his finances and forces and reserves. But still, through all of that, he did not excel. He still was. He still just. He still got. He still got what happened to the rest of the the other tribes that were dwelling in this land, like Gad. All right. He got pushed off his land and put on another area. Right. So that's the part of Reuben not excelling. The Trail of Tears. General Andrew the Devil Jackson, which later became president, was known for, on the Trail of Tears, he was known for snatching babies out of the native women and the Reubenite women, Seminole women's hands that were walking too slow on the trail. He was known for snatching the babies out of their hands and bashing the baby's head up against a hickory tree. That's why they called him Old Hickory. All right, not because he had some wood teeth like the white man taught you in high school. All right, that's doesn't even make sense. His name was Old Hickory because he would bash up the babies' heads against the a hickory tree, against the wood, if the women were moving too slow on the Trail of Tears. You know how impatient the white man gets. So let's see what the Bible has to say about that. The book of Psalms, chapter 137, verse 7. This is King David prophesying. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom, in the day of Jerusalem. All right, who's the child of Edom? Andrew Jackson, the white man, who said, raise it, which means destroy it, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. So it's talking about the Edomites in Babylon, the so-called Americans. Happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stone. All right, so when when that day comes, we're gonna be dashed. The so that those five tribes that happened to, the Reubenites and those four other Gadite tribes that happened to on the Trail of Tears, we're gonna be taking. It's gonna be paid back on them. We're gonna be dashing their little ones against the stones, as Andrew Jackson got a nickname, Old Hickory, from dashing our little ones against the tree, right? So it's rewarding them as they have served us. You understand? So that's biblical prophecy, and that fits for Reuben, and also tribes of Gad that went through that. First Chronicles 5 and 18. The sons of Reuben, the Seminoles, and the Gadites, the natives, and half of the tribe of Manasseh, the Taínos, a valiant men able to bear buckler and sword and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war, were 440 40,703 score that went out to war. All right, so it said Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh. It's known throughout the face of the earth, from a child to a grown man to a grown woman to an old lady, that the so-called Seminoles were people of the bow, and that the so-called natives of the Americas was a people of the bow, people of the bow, the tribe of Gad, and it's known that the Taínos were a people of the bow, right? Like it says in the scriptures, that's prophecy of those three tribes, that they would be the people of the bow. But you can't go to Africa and find no Hamite. And you can't run up on uh, any person and ask, "Hey, what's the people that shoot the bow?" They ain't gonna tell you no Hamite tribe in Africa. All right, because most people can't even name one. They're gonna say the so-called natives. They're gonna say the Seminoles, right? This so-called Cimarron or whatnot. But it's Seminole. It's actually the tribe of Reuben and the tribe of Gad. These were people in the half the tribe of Manasseh, which is the Taínos. These are the people that buckled the bow, that shot the bow. All right, for their choice weapon of war, and that's known throughout history. And with that being said, I want to say all praises to Ahiah, and all hail the Lion of Judah. Big up the tribe of Judah and all the 12 tribes. And Shalom. Kwam Yasharala.